Hello, welcome to Opening Doors podcast. I am Rachel Dalinka, your host, and today I have the privilege of speaking with author DANI. DANI hails from Harlem, New York. She was plagued with a series of deeply traumatic childhood experiences, and then a few decades with drug addiction, incarceration, the degradation and dereliction that comes along with that life. After several years of contemplating what would they think, DANI stepped out on faith and birthed an amazing memoir, Pretty Little Bastard Child. That memoir of the darkness that turned on God's light. Um, and one of the things that she says is that the road to redemption is not always straight forward. However, everything is possible with God in the driver's seat. Last year, she also penned an anthology, Love Language of Grief, and she's working on Echoes of Affection, Tales of Human Connection currently. I'd like to introduce you all to deacon, chef, author, and motivational speaker, DANI. Welcome to Opening Doors podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Rachel. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited to speak with you and share your story with the Opening Doors community. One of the things that I find really inspiring is one of your taglines. Your trauma is not your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. And I think it's such an important message that we are responsible for our own healing. And so I'd like to hear a little bit about the traumas that you suffered and how you were able to take control of your healing and what you were able to do to get to where you are now.
You know, I could give you the short version and say that it's self-explanatory, but it is a tagline that I not only put together because of my life, but because it's very important to know that, you know, a lot of us walk around with trauma around our neck, like this chain I wear, right? And we walk around with it most of our life because we don't know that, you can take responsibility now. It's no longer happening to you. The people that did it, half of them are dead and gone, and you're still carrying this stuff, right? But you wonder why your life is going the way it's going. Why are you stuck on drugs? Why are you over drinking? Why are you overthinking? Why are you overeating? Why are you overspending? Why are you pushing everybody out of your life, right? And most of it comes from the fact that if you were traumatized as a kid in any way, sexual, emotional, physical, dysfunctional, watching, your mother and your father beat the crap out of each other, that becomes traumatizing. So when you grow up, it's two things that happen: either fight or flight. That's your way of dealing with things. So, but at a certain point, or you allow people to beat the crap out of you, allow people to talk to you certain ways. You don't know how to set boundaries because you did not have that. So at a certain point, as an adult, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired of myself. And, it started with getting clean, and getting some therapy. And, the hardest thing to do in life, stop using and stop abusing oneself. But at that point, it was my responsibility. So that was the start of my healing.
How many years ago did you get clean?
Well, I stopped smoking crack in 1989 after jails and institutions and almost dying a few times and becoming a derelict. It was time.
Yeah. And I know you spent some time living on the streets.
I spent quite a while living on the streets because, at a certain point, once, as the young people say, once you come up in the household that ain't about that life, as they say it. My mom wasn't having it. She was one of the people that I thought I hated. A lot of the dysfunction and a lot of stuff, it's in the book, came from the relationship that I had, or the lack thereof, the relationship with my mom. So I left home very early. she'd force me home, I'd leave, and at a certain point she's like, all right, well, go, and what happened to me out in the street was a result of my decision to be grown and to be out in the street. But at a certain point, I was no longer dealing, I was using drugs. So, yeah, that became my lifestyle. That became my way. And at a certain point, it was like that became my best friend. So everybody backed away from me. So I was a bum. I lived from park bench to abandonmenium to park bench. Yeah. So.
And then you said enough is enough in 1989.
Yeah. Yeah, it was August. Winter was approaching. It was getting ready to get cold, and I just didn't want to do another. I was sick of being dope sick. I was sick of sleeping with whomever just so I could get a hot, cot, possibly for a night. Waking up next to people I didn't know who it was, how we got there. Did we even do anything? Stealing, robbing, not washing my behind, not doing, anything but using drugs, finding ways and means, to use more drugs. So I didn't want to do another winter trying to find somewhere warm, trying to lie my way into some place. And and by God's grace and it's always by God's grace or whatever power you believe in, because, my mom had, back in the day, you could do collect calls, right? So she had cut off the collect calls. She's like, no. You want to stay out there? You stay out there. So that meant if I went to jail, I couldn't contact her. That meant if I was, whatever, I couldn't contact her. So, I went to a friend's house who happened to be one of my tricks, who had a phone. And I said, listen, I need to call my mom. And I called my mom and I said, Ma, I promise, if you let me come home, I'll get myself together. And oddly enough, she said, all right. She called my aunt and she said, you got 4 hours to get here, because I was in New York and she had moved to New Jersey. And she said, and if you're not here in 4 hours, act like we are dead. And it was something about the way she said it that particular time that made me realize that she meant it. Yeah. So I came home and they had a list of places for me to call and get involved with or go to rehab. And I was clean from 1989 to 2009 when I had a relapse. So, but my mother died seeing me clean. So that was the blessing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
You were able to repay your mother by helping to raise your much younger siblings, right?
Oh, yeah. It wasn't much helping. It was raising, period. They were 12, 9, and 4. When I got home, they were 10, I believe 7 and like 2, or just 18 months or 19 months. And like 2 years after I got clean, my mom passed away. She was very young. She had a second generation within one generation. And it was me and my older brother. My older brother was a mommy's boy. So it was kind of like I was raising him too, because I was always, even though out in the street, he had went to the service, he had children, but everybody knew not to mess with him because he was my brother. Though he was my older brother, I was always the one, taking up for him. So when my mother died, it was like 4 kids.
A lot of kids.
But one just happened to be older than me. Yeah. So, but yeah, I was able to do that. And, by God's grace, I'm grateful for the opportunity. I was grateful to be able to get myself together. It gave me something to grow me up. I was an adult at that point. I didn't know much about adulting. However, I did the best that I could. And I had a wonderful fellowship to help me, fellowship of men and women that helped me. So.
Tell the listeners a little bit about that, about being able to find a community of people that you could rely on. And was this a recovery community, a religious community? Yeah.
Yes. Well, both, but not in the beginning. In the beginning, it was a recovery community. It was a fellowship of 12 steps, 12 traditions, and 12 principles. I won't mention the names because it's breaking the principle. But, if anybody out there has had addiction and got clean, you know what I'm talking about. So, when my mother passed away, I didn't even know how to write a check. I didn't know how to buy a bra. Like, I was reaching out to women in the fellowship to ask them to help me, So then having these kids, like overnight becoming a parent and not even wanting to have kids, it was a lot, but I stayed clean and I kicked and I screamed in meetings and I asked questions and I kicked and I screamed and I cried when I needed to. And, but I got through it.
But one of the biggest things I think that your story right here is telling people is asking for help is the key. Reaching out to people you trust.
Humility.
Yes, having the humility to ask for help and you need it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's called humility, and a lot of us don't have it. A lot of us, especially us 60s, 70s baby boomer babies that never watched our parents ask for much help, because that especially, in the African American community, you didn't go get help. You didn't go to therapy. You prayed everything away. You went to the church and God was going to make it all right. Now, I wasn't even brought up in the church. However, my mother, though she was going through her own hell, and I know that now, but I didn't know that then. She didn't ask for help. So I don't know how to do that, and then I got clean, and then she died. And I had these kids. And I had me that was just getting my life back. And I'm like, holy crap, what the hell? God, this ain't what I signed up for.
God was like, you can take a whole lot more than you think. You can do it. You can do it.
Right. But that's the part where you like, look, God, I know they say you ain't going to give us more than we can bear, but stop trusting me so damn much. God is good. God is good. I didn't have to have the birthing pains, but I got the mother, everything that comes along with mother. Births, first heartbreaks, them starting their period, them trying to navigate their sexuality, bullying or non-bullying, to go to school or not to go to school, to go to college or not to go to. I got it all. I just didn't give birth to them.
They were lucky to have you, for sure.
Tell them that, please. If you're watching, Nicole, Calandra, and Laquan, you heard that? Okay.
So one of the things that I think is really an interesting part of healing from trauma is forgiveness. Forgiving those who inflicted the trauma and forgiving yourself. Can you talk a little bit about that, about how you were able to find forgiveness in your heart and maybe help people with a forgiveness nugget?
Yes. It's the first step. It really is. I had to learn how to forgive myself for all the times that I tried to go it alone, thinking that I was, yes, I see it's an oxymoron. We tell women all the time, women's power, the Me Too movement, find your voice, right? And then we try to take on everything. I'm every woman, superwoman. I can do it all, right? And then we put too much stuff on our plate, right? Because that's what we were taught to do. You're the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. You make sure the household is right. You handle all the finances. You take care of the husband or the wife or whomever. You take care of the kids. You make sure the doctor's appointments and the veterinary stuff is all of that, right? Sounds a lot like daunting, right? But you never address the trauma that you're holding on top of that. And whatever you did to get to that place of where you became the housewife when you used to be the hoe. Right. So then one day, bam, it hit you like a brick. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So the first thing has to come with forgiving the people that hurt me because it happened, right? Then the next thing has to come with letting go of the fact that you didn't know that you needed healing. You just all the time thought you were broken. I can't be fixed. I'm broken. That's it. Take me as I am. No, people don't have to take your crap. People don't have to take you as you are. And if you notice, people have been running away from you. Newsflash, you need some healing. But the only way to do that is to address the fact that it happened. First of all, if you can't speak to your trauma, you can't heal from your trauma. That's number one. And there's so many of us walking around here that still haven't spoken. He molested me. She beat the crap out of me. They gang raped me. He did this in front of me. I should have never saw that, but I did. So what do I do now? Do I continue on stuffing it and acting like it didn't happen? And bleeding all over people who didn't cut me?
Right.
Or do I start saying, you know what? Maybe he had an alcohol problem. Maybe she got the crap beat out of her for years and she didn't know how to address it, so she became abusive. Maybe they didn't know that they didn't know. And until I admit that they had their issues first, before they even imposed it upon me, I couldn't heal from it.
It's such an important point.
So like, my mom and my dad are dead, sleeping in their grave. They have no more feeling, not on this side of eternity. And ain't nobody come back from the other side to tell me it's so bad or so good over there. So I'm going to run with what I do while I'm here. And I could either continue to allow that pain to cloud my vision about what life is all about, to continue to give me all kinds of issues and isms and ictions. Or I could say, without you, I wouldn't be alive, though. And I'm still here. So what am I going to do to make the rest of my life the best of my life? All right, I forgive you. Now let me work through my pain, turn this pain into purpose. So
you turned your pain into
how to
purpose.
say, you know what? Yeah. And in doing that, I was able to forgive myself. And in staying clean a day at a time, I was able to forgive myself. Even after I relapsed, what I realized was I still wasn't hurting anybody. I like to use this as an analogy. Holding a resentment or not forgiving someone is like peeing on yourself, right? Other people outside of you might see that wet stain, right? But who's going to feel it? Nobody but you. You feel it during the day. You feel it at night. You feel it as it's drying on your leg. You feel it as it gets stinky and smelly because now it's just a piss stain in your pants, right? So who is it benefiting? Nobody. Let it go.
Right. Another similar analogy is holding on to anger and resentment is like, preparing a concoction of poison for your enemy, but drinking it yourself. Because your enemy doesn't know.
You're drinking it
Your enemy
yourself,
doesn't know all of that anger you have.
It robs you.
It's robbing you of your peace of mind.
Yeah. Or as we said in recovery, it robs you, holding resentments rob you of your recovery. And it's true. And recovery is what? Your healing, right? When you get a surgery or when you have some type of disease, right? You go to the doctor, they give you a treatment, and then they say, go home and do what? Rest and recover, right? So if you're not letting go of the resentment, then how can you fully recover? How can you heal?
And I think the other important message, which is, a huge one in the addiction recovery movement, is the one day at a time. That is so important.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't happen in one day. It's every single day. Every single day you have to go back again, take the steps you need to take to live the right way, to make the right choices, to care about yourself.
Yeah, we have a saying. It's called God, self, and others. Okay. It doesn't matter who you call your God. Doesn't matter even if you believe in God. But whatever force, whatever power you believe in, just has to be greater than you. It has to be more loving. It has to be more caring. And until you get that concept, that just like on a plane, if the cabin for some unforeseen reason loses pressure, please take the time to put your own mask on first before someone else's.
Mhm.
And I know as parents, we struggle with that because these are our kids, right? But if the cabin pressure leads, and I'm trying to save you in the midst, you're still a kid. You don't know how to do everything else because you were on your Game Boy or whatever you were on while the instructions were coming up, right? So I'm gonna die, but you gonna live because you got the air mask on, right? That's not the way it works. And I know that sounds crazy, but because that's our kid, but I can't put your air mask on. I can't help you until I help me
Mhm.
first. Now I can get to you. But you had to start with trusting. You had to start with believing. You had to start with learning that there's a hierarchy here. Though we'd like to believe we're the great I am, we are not. This thing is so much bigger than us, and that's where service comes in.
Service is
Mhm.
definitely huge, and one of the four S's that I like to talk about: spirituality, self-care, service, and support. So we talked about support, how you got
Yep.
support. We talked about your self-care.
Hmm.
Let's hear some of your service.
Yeah. As I stayed clean, I realized my need for some spiritual, some type of more in depth, not so much religious, because the church that I became a member of was non denominational. So it wasn't a matter of religion itself. It was me getting a closer conscious contact with God as I understood God to be. It was with me getting a closer contact with God loves me just the way I am. And if God chooses to talk to me about something that needs to change or needs to go somewhere else or needs to be dissipated, God and I will have that connection and I will hear God's voice, right? But the one thing that God said to me in giving me children was I still was a nurturer. I didn't know nothing about nurturing. I didn't want to nurture. I didn't want to share my drugs with you. At the end, I didn't want to be bothered with you. I was, look, you keep everything over there unless you got something for me to get high on. Care what it was, right? So I got clean and I stayed clean and I learned that it was this world, this thing that we live in is so much bigger than me. I'm just a small, minute piece of the puzzle, right? And it's self-service and goodwill. That's what keeps my blessings flowing. And until I realized that I was supposed to do give back, I was supposed to open doors for other people. Because I was in jails and institution, I was supposed to go back and let them know, yes, this is how this works. Yes, you can stay clean. Yes, you don't have to go back into the system just because you've been in the system. Yes, you deserve more than what you've allowed yourself to receive. If you can't believe it for you, believe it because of me. Not that I'm better than you. I'm not greater than you,
Right, but you're an
but
example
I've been where you're
of
at.
someone who was able to do it.
What happens if you
Yeah.
do the work? If you do the work. And I was the head of the outreach ministry during COVID. I was under the bridges with hand sanitizer and mask and plates of food and, coffee and whatever they needed, man. I mean, I lost so many people who were homeless that had a name and a story that knew Deacon DANI because of my service. And people, what hurts me to my heart is people look at them like they're not
Oh,
human.
no.
They are. They just had another story than you. And quiet be kept, especially with the new administration coming in. You think you know the haves and the have-nots. Watch what's getting ready to happen. But quite frankly, each and every one of those homeless people that we step across every day has a story. They had a family. They had a life. They were born into this life. It's not my responsibility or my concern as to how they became homeless unless they choose to share it with me. My concern is that I have $5 and they need a cup of coffee. My concern and my responsibility is that person has a feeling, like I have a feeling. If you cut them, they bleed. They're still breathing. Okay, they don't smell so good. You could put on a mask, but feed them. Why? Because you got food to feed people. Why? Because you're calling yourself a Christian. Why? Because you're out here in the world and you have something called compassion. Why? Because God brought you from the same place.
Right.
So now you great. Now you big. Now you better than. No, you can't ever forget where you come from. Paycheck to credit card to paycheck. That's how most of us live right now. The majority of the people in this country, not just in the Northeast, in this country, some people don't even have credit cards because they done been doomed their credit. So it's paycheck to can I borrow until I get paid to my next paycheck. And that's how people are living right now. And if that job was to be taken away tomorrow, 2 months later when they sit your shit stuff on the street, you're homeless. Oh, but I stayed with my aunt. Do you have an address and a key that belongs to you? No, you're homeless. Sorry, newsflash.
So it's about taking care of each other.
Surface. I mean, look at what's going on in California right now. Like 10%, 15, 20% of those people
Oh,
absolutely. Were rich. They were stars. They were, actresses. They were musicians. They were whatever. And they had more money than one person should have, hand over fist, right? Guess what they got now?
Nothing. They have everything they owned is burned up.
They don't have a debit card, half of them, to go to a bank if they could find a bank somewhere to go to even get to the money. Some of them, with all of this bureaucracy that's going on, they canceled their insurance. Yes. Yeah. It's so much crap going on behind this thing, but understand this, the humanity that I see coming out of this. And of course, there's going to be some idiots that are going to, do their own thing, and GoFundMe for their own pocket and their own greed. Yeah, it's the human nature. If I can get over. Why? I don't know. But, that's none of my business. But the point of the story is the ones that are coming together to see no color, to see no race, to see, look, we are all in this together and we need to help. And we need your help to help.
Right.
That's the part of this world that I love living in. When disaster happens, people pull together. When 9/11 happened, people pulled together. When Katrina happened, people pulled together. And that's the thing that lets me have a little bit of faith.
Hope. Yep.
Just a tiny mustard seed of faith and hope that we can change this world one nice, kind deed at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the important things we need to remember too is the little act of kindness that you give to somebody, you have no idea how much that's appreciated. And a lot of the time it's highly appreciated. It really is. Those ripples, they move out.
It goes a long way. Somebody told me very early on in my recovery years ago, do something for somebody and don't mention it. Just be nice to somebody. Be kind to somebody. Give somebody something and don't ever tell a soul. Don't put it up on Facebook. Don't do nothing.
Right.
Watch how it makes you feel.
Right. And that you can't put a price on
that. It ain't about what you did.
That good feeling inside of.
You have a bad day, go do something nice for somebody and watch your day get better.
Absolutely. I think that's a phenomenal way to leave the listeners. Go do something nice for somebody today and watch how it comes back. And just with your own uplifted spirit.
Better yet, if somebody's mean mugging you, instead of mean mugging them back, right? Give them a smile. Give somebody a smile that doesn't have one. And you'll be surprised what comes back at you.
Absolutely. That's really powerful too. Meet
You know?
negativity with positivity. And hopefully you'll cancel some of that negativity out. Thank you, DANI.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.